Good morning, everybody. My name is Jamin Johnson, and my topic for this speech is, should social media take responsibility for its users? And I disagree with this. So, imagine demanding an eagle to swim through the ocean depths, or expecting a fish to breach the atmosphere and fly alongside a plane. It's an absurd expectation, wouldn't you agree? Similarly, placing the sole responsibility of regulating hate speech and misinformation on the shoulders of social media platforms is equally illogical. These platforms, functioning as mediums for free speech, should not be burdened with the task of policing the actions of their users. To do so would be a fundamental infringement on the very essence of open communication and the ideas of exchange, however controversial they may be. Firstly, attributing blame to social media platforms for the spreading of harmful content creates a chilling effect on free speech. Due to the nature of most social media platforms, such as Instagram and Facebook, we can look to the US Constitution and its First Amendment for some answers. The relevant portion of the First Amendment states, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press, or the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for redress of grievances. So, to explain, in short, the First Amendment, which covers social media platforms, seeing as how they are US entities, are not liable or responsible legally for demanding regulation of free speech on their platforms. So how are we, who are not of this body, not of the Congress, to demand that they do so? We can also turn to Section 230 of the Communications Deviancy Act of 1996, which came out alongside social media as it was born. It states, no provider or user of an interactive computer service shall be treated as a publisher or speaker of any information provided by another information content provider. This is also reaffirming that in the context of social media platforms, even though you may have a social obligation to what you say, there is no legal obligation and it should not be treated as such. Now, open discourse, even when it includes disagreeable viewpoints, is a cornerstone of a healthy society. Imagine if you were a parent, or as a matter of fact, a child, and you go to your parent, and they look at you and say, we don't want to listen to what you're saying. Now, how would you feel about that? You'd feel disheartened. You wouldn't trust them. So how are we to look at social media platforms and say, they must silence people for saying certain things, even though you may not be able to verify whether it is true or false? Now, placing the power to regulate content in the hands of these social media platforms opens the door to potential censorship and the stifling of diverse perspectives, ultimately harming the very freedom of expression these platforms were built upon. We can turn to a real-life example, North Korea, Pyongyang. Now, the three dynasties of the recent North Korea have implemented certain restrictions upon their social media platforms. Users are not allowed to post anything that is against the leadership. They're not allowed to post anything about their country. The most they can do is pledge undying allegiance to their leader. How is that fair when a so-called democracy that we have based our societies upon is to say, you cannot say A, you must say B? Frankly, that is both unethical and quite heinous. Furthermore, the lack of a universally agreed upon definition for terms like hate speech and misinformation makes the task of effectively regulating nearly impossible. What one person deems hateful, another may consider passionate criticism. Similarly, what appears as blatant falsehood might be truth to another, even though it's wrong. Context matters, and not everybody has the correct context. Not everybody in the seat of the regulator's chair has the correct context. Somebody could text, I don't like the president. They could be in the context, they do not like the president's clothing or the president's ideas. Not that they hate the president as a person and they must be silenced for that. Now, this subjectivity makes the creation of clear-cut guidelines for content moderation an incredibly complex and subjective endeavor. Now, we can also look to another real-life example. There is a streaming platform by the name of Twitch. Now, certain streamers, it's a streaming platform where streamers can record themselves doing many activities under certain guidelines. We have seen where free speech has been hindered on these platforms due to the fact that it does not align with the agenda of some of the regulators. We can also turn to Reddit. You could say you're not a fan of the Reddit, you could starve, they'll ban you. You could say you're not a fan of the subreddit that you're in, they'll ban you. That is a potential cause to your effect to your cause. Now, finally, holding social media platforms solely accountable for the actions of their users undermines the importance of individual responsibility. Each user has an agency to choose what they post and the potential consequences of their actions. Shifting this responsibility away from the individuals fosters a culture of deflection and a lack of personal accountability, hindering the development of critical thinking skills necessary to navigate the complexities of online discourse. Now, we can go back to a parent and their child. Imagine if the child speaks his mind and the parent listens, and the parent does not have the full context, the parent does not know what the child is talking about, and decides to silence them. Would you say, as an audience, that is right?
Not at all, not at all.
I pose another question then. Would it be right for the parent to blatantly say that is false, even though they have no information about the situation? Would it be right for them to look at the child and say, a nonsense here, chat?
No, that's not.
Last one.
Exactly. One last question. Let us say that the child does say something that is wrong, right? Say they say the sky is green, and the parent looks at them and says, no, it is blue. Would it be right for the parent to discipline the child for a simple error in judgment?
No.
So for something as little as an error in judgment, you wouldn't discipline the child. So why must social media platforms be the sole bearers of justifying themselves in the case of silencing their users? Now, while unfettered free speech is vital, it's not without limitations, I must say. Just as yelling fire in a crowd theater creates a dangerous situation even without malicious intent, hate speech and demonstrably false information have the potential to incite real-world harm. So we must be on the lookout for that. So, also, we must find a balance between protecting free expression and safeguarding users from demonstratively harmful content. This is crucial for our society, and even if it requires some level of content moderation and regulation on the part of the social media platforms. Now, what I'm saying is, we do not want to silence people, but we as users must take accountability, and we cannot expect social media platforms to be the sole arbiters of this. We are in a partnership. Essentially, we sign the contract. We must all play our part. So, in conclusion, expecting social media platforms to be the sole arbiters of truth and arbiters of acceptable speech is an unreasonable and potentially detrimental expectation. Protecting free speech expression, the inherent subjectivity of harmful content, and the importance of individual accountability necessitate a nuanced approach that goes beyond simply placing the blame on these platforms. So I would like to thank you all for listening to my speech and being so attentive. You have been wonderful. Thank you.